Welcome to Brew House. We are so glad that you have joined us. This is a weekly podcast and videocast series. We make fun of bad coffee. We love drinking good coffee. And more importantly, we really enjoy discussing and answering the tough questions that you guys, our wonderful audience, are asking us each and every week. So look forward to you guys tuning in. Every single week, we are going to answer a different question and just give you some of our thoughts and ideas around it. We would love participation, so please feel free to comment, email us, provide us feedback. We want to hear from you because this is only as good as the questions you ask.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Brew House. As Brendan said a few weeks ago, we were going to have a guest interview and a guest conversation on Brew House. And today I am extremely excited to introduce to you Dr. John Toews. Dr. John is a friend of mine and somebody that I actually look up to quite a bit. You have been a safe place for me to come and have conversations with you, ask you questions. You know, one of the things that I often say when I left Vancouver Island, one of the things that I mourned was a relationship I had there with a lady named Miss Joy, and she had been a professional counselor for, longer than I had been alive. Mm-hmm. And she was such a wisely sage in the scriptures and with Jesus and the divine and all of that. And then when I came to Calgary, I quickly met Dr. John, and he kind of became my Mr. Joy, if I could say it that way. And so today I'm honored to sit here with you today, Dr. John, and I know our listeners are going to be just thrilled to hear from you today. And so I am really excited about this. Our whole staff actually was excited about having you on Brew House today. And so I just want to personally say thank you for being a safe place that a pastor can go and ask questions and work through things. And you ask really good questions back, and you give great advice. So thank you. You're a gift.
Really?
Yes, you are. So
no one has said that to me for ages.
Well, there you go. Well, you are a gift. And so, Dr. John, why don't you share a little bit with our listeners about who you are and about some of your journey? What brought you here?
Well, what's my journey? I've went to medical school, decided I was going to be a doctor, and then I discovered, I didn't really want to do all the blood and guts, so I moved over to psychiatry.
Right.
And I discovered I loved the people, whether it was the patients or whether I had a group or whatever. It was wonderful being with them. And I didn't expect that.
Okay.
And so, wow.
So you're originally from Steinbeck, Manitoba, right?
Yes.
Now Steinbeck is kind of like, it would be like maybe Canada's version of the Bible Belt. Would you say something like that?
Well, at least.
Oh, at least. Okay. And so you're from Steinbeck, and so you grew up in a faith tradition. So what was that like for you?
Well, that was all I knew.
Okay.
And, the clergy had it all worked. I wouldn't use the word clergy,
Okay.
Maybe the preacher guy or whatever.
Okay,
right?
all right, the preacher guy, yeah, for sure.
And I've always been interested in what's behind the next line or the next story or the next whatever. Mm-hmm. And that didn't really allow me much.
Okay.
So I decided, I was going to go to university, and from there, okay, that's university. Now what do I want to do? Well, why don't you look at medicine? Okay, I will look at medicine. Well, okay, now what? well, you can't just look at medicine. What do you want to do? Well, I want to think about it for a little while, and then I say, I want to go into psychiatry.
Oh, I bet they love that.
Oh, listen, I've been warned. I'd been warned in my Steinbach days to stay away from psychiatry.
Right.
So yes, I would stay away. Thank you. And then I got trapped and got into psychiatry, and from there, loved what I was doing. You know, I love people, and I was surprised because I was a loner, always a loner. And I love people, and I loved my patients, and I loved the experiences of life. And so that gave me a lot of enthusiasm. And from there, well, I got I decided I'd complete my psychiatry residency, ended up saying, well, what's from there? Well, what's from there is, what do you really want? What do you wish for it? And, you know, Steinbach is great for saying to you, you are Christian and you will behave in this way and you will speak in this way and all that sort of stuff.
I understand that, yes.
And here I found I had freedom. I was able to help. I wrote a book once,
Okay.
No Longer Alone, Mental Health in the Church.
Oh, wow.
And I practiced some retreats and things like that. And gradually I got out of that stuff into coming to Calgary and finding my way. So right now I am getting a bit old.
Oh, man.
75 years.
Oh, man.
And I find sometimes I stumble over words. You know, there's a sizable number of us that have trouble stumbling over words as we grow older.
Well, I'm 49 and I stumble over words all the time.
Well, catch up to me.
I'm trying.
So, you know, I'm happy I've got an opportunity. I've been an academic. Part of what I was to do was to go to a number of different countries.
You said you went to Russia 5 times?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Well, it wasn't my favorite place,
Okay.
but you know, I was on a contract.
Okay.
The university of wherever I was
Okay.
put me on a contract, and so I
Okay.
had to show up there.
All right.
And try and help them conceptualize treating mental illnesses or mental disorders in the community, as opposed to in big asylums.
Okay.
And so that's what we were doing then.
Which used to be a really big thing. The way they dealt with those issues is we're going to just lock them away,
Exactly.
you know, versus living with and journeying with.
Exactly. So, you know, I enjoyed that part. And from there I traveled. And one time a friend of mine asked me whether I'd go with him to...
Was it India that you went to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To India, and I would go and see his guru with him. They have a big bunch, and they've got a big development. They've got a hospital. They've got all kinds of stuff. And okay, this is it. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm a Christian guy. You know, this is Hindu. Yeah, what are you doing here? And just, you know, I had a real crisis of faith.
Okay, tell me
Because
about
I'm
that.
sitting there in this 4-hour-long, for us would be prayer session, and I couldn't understand a word of it, but my mind got busy, and it started to say, what are you doing here in this session? You are a Christian. And if you're a Christian, what are you doing in worship with these people? My response, I needed to be there. Because you know what? I think God had a bit of a rough edge he wanted to kick out by saying, listen, it's not just the way you see faith, but here you're observing and part of another looking at faith. And hey, all my anxiety went away, and it ended up being a wonderful experience.
Okay.
And so that's where that goes.
Well, one of the phrases that you talk about quite a bit along life and journey, and one of the things that I appreciate about Dr. John that we can relate, and Brennan's in this capacity as well, is you're a psychiatrist. Brennan and I come from counseling backgrounds, but I think it's this desire not just to help, in the healing side of things, but it's we're journeying with through the process. And so you actually have this phrase that you said that we're caught up in. We're in the current. We're caught in this. And so I wonder if you can talk about this idea that we're on a journey, but we're in the flow. We're in this current of sorts. Can you expound on that a little bit? Because I think that's a really huge idea that I would say the Spirit is sustaining us. He's carrying us. It's flowing. But can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh goodness, my whole life is a flow these days. When you get to be my age, there's a lot of thoughts that keep running around in your mind, and I'm not sure they always make sense. I love people. I love the human experience. I love finding new contacts, new friends. I love sitting with them and discovering that we have something in common. And some of them will say to me, don't you talk no religion stuff to me. And my response is, I promise I won't. And then we start to talk, and the most amazing thing happened. I became aware of, I don't even know the words, the fullness of the Spirit carrying me in about a 2-hour coffee with a friend of mine and her friend. And they didn't want nothing to do with no religion. Thank you very much.
Right.
Fine. Don't need to. Don't need to. Honest. But we talked and we discovered we were all, the three of us, caught up in a flow. I have no other word for it, and I don't know quite what to do with it because I don't see it in the psychiatric book.
Okay.
Or really in Christian literature either.
Okay, all right. All right.
But I was caught up in the flow of this sort of sense of God, my words, divine, a bigger tent, and watching us move and finding that we're held together in a sort of love bond.
Okay.
That takes us
Right.
from here way across to there. And we're all saying the same thing in wonderful ways.
Okay.
So,
Well, one of the things that you just mentioned that I think our listeners would enjoy hearing is this concept of an idea of love. You see that play out really big with Jesus. And and so could you talk a little bit about love, and then if we're calling ourselves Jesus followers, how we should be demonstrating love?
good question. I almost throw it back at you. But, you know, uh, the it is a kind of flow, a kind of realization. And then you go look over at Jesus and you say, Jesus, we expect you to be a certain way. And often we're sort of mealy-mouthed when we say it because we don't want Jesus to really throw back his head and laugh. We don't want Jesus to reflect our humanity and lead us beyond it.
So one of the things that you and I have talked about in our times together is especially right now, you know, because of COVID and maybe other things, people's faith structures are kind of breaking down because God hasn't fit that structure of belief. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of flow and how God is bigger than all of that, and he's even bigger than our questions, right? Can you talk a little bit, like, because I know that some people listening are in a place where they're, well, I'm in a place where I'm asking a lot of questions, and I think people are in a place of asking a lot of questions, and I can.
Don't worry, because the questions will open up further discussion.
Okay.
As opposed to discovering something there that there's another rule that we must follow.
Okay.
You know, and what people feel sort of bothered by the difficulties we're all going through right now. And I know I felt that way. But listen, this is important. Allow the whole experience to work with you.
Okay.
Don't look for answers
Okay.
as much as the sense of the flow, the sense of being with, the things sharing. And that, actually, Jesus is a wonderful example of that.
How so? How would you say Jesus is a wonderful example of?
Well, first of all, was Jesus totally predictable?
No, he wasn't. Not at all. Not at all. No, he wasn't.
You know, he really pulled out all stops sometimes.
He did.
And in embarrassing ways.
Yes, he did.
We want the narrow way.
Right.
And Jesus says, "Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden."
Right. And
Is that incredible?
That is. It is incredible. And I think it's beautiful because, you know, Brendan and I talked about this in past episodes, is that Jesus was about removing stumbling blocks to get to him. And yet we, in all different kinds of faith traditions, keep putting stumbling blocks back. And I think Jesus keeps saying, no, just come.
Yeah.
Come.
Exactly. Look, part of my humanity, but Jesus was an incredible leader, an incredible feeder. He loved his friends. He picked up situations that we would maybe want to go on the other side with. After all, they're messy. Hey, Jesus was messy. We don't want to say that.
Right.
And maybe I should.
No, it's okay. We've said that already. Oh, he is messy. And I think, one of the things that you've touched on is and coming through COVID and other things and traditions, coming from Steinbeck, I came from the Deep South, which is a Bible Belt version of itself. Everything was about structures, rules, control, and even to points where God had to fit a certain structure. It had to operate within a certain rules, if we could say it that way. And yet now we find ourselves where those things, through COVID, et cetera, people are questioning those. God is showing himself much bigger than our structures. How would you give comfort to people as they're now wrestling through some of these challenging times or challenging questions? Would you help them by saying stop it, or would you tell them to continue on to?
Yes, to continue on, and to allow. You see, when you are really scared or really caught, you're restricted. But you know what? That restriction is what you have